Sonic the Hedgehog is a video game character made in 1991. He was popular throughout the 90s with absolutely no fumbles whatsoever, but had a rough time transitioning into 3D. At the turn of the century in 1999, Sonic Team made their first ever bad game in Sonic Adventure. Is that the intro you wanted to hear? For some reason, Sonic Adventure has gone down in history as a bad game, and I seriously don't understand why. Like, I get it. It's buggy, the voice acting isn't great, the animations don't hold up, but that applies to almost every 3D platformer from 1999. Compared to other attempts to make the transition at the time, I think Sonic did really well. Sonic Adventure isn't even really technically Sonic's first 3D game. Sega had been tinkering with the idea for years with Sonic R and the Sonic World portion of Sonic Jam. I've said Sonic way too many times, so for the next paragraph I will refer to him as Peanut. The thing that I actually like about Peanut Team in the 90s and early 2000s is that they weren't afraid to experiment with the character and make different genres of games in the Peanut franchise. Racing games, fighting games, puzzle games, pinball games, you name it, and Peanut has been in one. Alright, I'm done with the Peanut thing. My point is, a lot of fans have come to the conclusion that due to this almost ADHD level of experimentation, this means that Sonic has some sort of identity problem. And personally, I disagree. I feel like this very experimental spirit is Sonic's identity. I guess what I'm trying to say is, I don't think Sonic is the one that had a rough transition. I think it was the fans. And I don't think anything shows this better than the debacle that was Sonic 4. Let's go through some history real quick, okay? Sonic 4 is the official sequel to the original Sonic the Hedgehog trilogy on the Sega Genesis and was made by Dimps, the same company that made the Sonic Advance trilogy. This will be important later. The game started its life as a mobile game called Sonic the Portable until Takashi Iizuka walked by and was like, "Whoa, that's a 2D Sonic game. We haven't had one of those in a while. Tell you what, this is gonna be our next big project. We're renaming the game to Sonic 4 and we're putting it on everything." For months, Sega pushed this game as being Sonic's triumphant return to form. Like all the things that fans loved about Sonic were coming back. And then the game came out. Sonic the Hedgehog 4 released in 2010 as a digital-only 2.5D platformer with a total of 5 zones. Compare that to the original Sonic game with a total of 7. In fact, compare most of this game with the original Sonic game, because it's kinda sorta a remake. Every single zone in Sonic 4 is a remake of a level from one of the original Sonic games. Splash Hill is Green Hill, Casino Street is Casino Night, and so on. The game feels very floaty and almost on rails at times. There's absolutely no need to build momentum or anything since you can just kinda walk up any sharp incline. This on-rails feeling is amplified by the implementation of the homing attack, a game mechanic designed specifically to make it easier to hit enemies in a 3D plane. The problem with this: Sonic 4 is a 2D game. The ability to just lock onto enemies and objects takes out any and all challenge in the platforming. In fact, this is possibly the easiest 2D platformer I have ever played. Graphically, the game isn't too hot either. The art style is kinda all over the place. Sonic and the other enemies have this weird cell shading to them, but other objects in the environment don't. In part due to the rest of the environment being mostly 2D sprites. In general, this game just isn't pretty to look at, and it's not much better to listen to either. I've always had the opinion that even if a Sonic game is bad, the soundtrack almost always slaps harder than Tyrion Lannister. This game, on the other hand, not so much. Okay, I guess that's a bit of an exaggeration. Maybe not. I can only guess that they wanted a synth-heavy soundtrack to keep up a retro feel, but nothing about this sounds retro in the slightest. Instead, it just kinda sounds cheap. In fact, that's how this game feels in general. Sega hyped this game up as a return to Sonic's glory days, but instead, the game just kinda feels like a cheap, nostalgic cash grab. And I know it could have been so much better because Dimps had shown that they could make great 2D Sonic games prior to this. 2 years later, Sega released a sequel to Sonic 4 called Sonic 4 Episode 2. I'd talk about it further, but the only version I own is the free-to-play mobile version with an ad after every single level, and I really don't want to subject you guys to that.
Raid Shadow Legends.
Sonic 4 Episode 2 was released in 2012 on all the usual suspects, but was excluded from the Wii for some reason. The game is very similar to Sonic 4, but with a few changes. The most prominent being the addition of Tails. With Tails, you're now able to pull off combination moves such as flying and whatever this thing is. Frankly, all these combination moves do is slow down the pace of the levels by stopping you in your tracks to press the button to see Sonic and Tails do a little animation before progressing. It kind of feels like they wanted the wisps from Sonic Colors without actually using the wisps. The worst part is, stripping away the combination moves would just make this game feel no different than the first one. All the levels are still remakes, there's still no weight or momentum to Sonic's movement, and the levels are still very linear and railroady. In 2015, it came out that the planned Sonic 4 Episode 3, which would have added Knuckles to the roster, was cancelled to really nobody's surprise. The main problem with Sonic 4 is that it was made to remedy a problem that at the time didn't really exist. 2D Sonic games were still going strong in the late 2000s and early 2010s, but Sonic 4 presented itself like it was gonna bring Sonic right back into the 90s, but instead it continued to tarnish Sonic's reputation in the mainstream. Thanks for watching. If you like this video, leave a like and become a pyromaniac yourself by subscribing. Until next time, stay nerdy, my friends.